Hey everyone, CB Tech here. Doing my review on the 5-day challenge using the Kyocera Hydro icon that I used last week for 5 days in the 5-day phone challenge. And I gotta say, I'm pleasantly surprised with the performance of this phone while using it for those 5 days. This phone's been out for a couple of years, not really sure how long it's been out, but I really believe this is one of the most underrated phones and actually a phone that's really being talked down and put down more than it really should have been. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into this review. I'm gonna give you my thoughts on it, run a few tests, play some games, and kind of go over some of the features of the phone again. It's kind of like a recap in this review. So let's go ahead and get started, and yeah, let's go ahead and do it. Okay, so here I am with the Kyocera Hydro icon after using it for 5 days in my 5-day challenge. And I gotta say, this has been a pretty good experience using this phone for 5 days. This phone's pretty old. It's been out since sometime in summer of 2014. And it's really one of those phones that's kind of underrated. It's kind of like an underdog phone. And I will explain why here in a few minutes. I'll give you a few specs of the phone and tell you a little bit about it. Now, this phone does run Android 4.4 KitKat. It did come out first. It says uh, it came out with 4.3, but it was updated to 4.4.2. And that's as far as it went. And it is water and shock resistant, and it is mil spec certified. So this phone here is very sturdy, and I gotta say, after 5 days of using it, I was really surprised at the performance this phone here does deliver compared to some other phones that are a little bit more popular, so say, than this phone right here is. This phone does have a 4.5-inch display at 540 by 960 resolution at 245 pixels per inch, and it does have scratch resistant glass. It does have an 8 megapixel camera on the rear that records in full 1080 at 30 frames per second, and does have a 2 megapixel camera on the front. This phone does run the 1.2 gigahertz quad core Snapdragon 400 processor with a 305 Adreno GPU, 1.5 gigabytes of RAM with 8 gigs of built-in storage with around 4 to 5 gigs available to user, and it will support expandable memory. It does have a 2000 milliamp hour battery with around 8 days of standby time and 14 hours of talk time. This is a 3G, 4G LTE device. It does have NFC and other stuff like that I will get into here in a second. Now, as you see, this phone has no ear speaker because it does have a Kyocera Smart Sonic Receiver. Down here is your back, home, and recents button. On the bottom is your microphone, micro USB charging port. On the right side, you have nothing. Left side, you have your volume rocker. On top is your headset jack power button. The back is your speaker, flash, your camera. Um, and so yeah, battery is replaceable. I will leave this on here because it has an O-ring around it to keep the water out. Kind of hard to get the back off of this thing, which is really nice because it's very well sealed and everything. So we'll go ahead and power the phone up here. And as you see, the phone looks really good. Now I'm trying to get this to focus in a little bit here. I'm not really sure if my rear camera lens is wiped off because it may be a little bit dirty. I don't know. This phone here is pretty snappy, and the phone screen is very sharp. Um, I hate to do this, but I'm going to wipe off the rear camera. Give me 1 second. Be right back. Okay, so I think that helped out quite a bit. This phone here is very snappy, like I said. It looks good. Um, Works flawlessly. I mean, it's very quick, very snappy. And I'm not going to spend too much time on this review on this phone because I have reviewed this phone before and stuff like that. There's plenty of them on YouTube, and some of them, of course, will bash this phone, saying it's junk and it's no count and this and all this stuff. But in my personal opinion, this is a great phone, and if you can still find this phone somewhere, I would highly recommend this phone. It does, like I said, it does have NFC. Too close. I will go in here and show you what I mean. Like I said, NFC, Android Beam. This does not support roaming though I don't believe. Um, the screen looks a little bit bad on my camera here, but in real life it does look really good. Now storage, as you see, is calculating. Give me a second here for this here to do. It does say 4.42 gigabytes of total space. However, there is an additional 1 gigabyte for if you want to move apps over to your SD card, over to the phone's internal storage. And you can also mount an SD card. So it does have 4.42 plus an extra gigabyte, so around 5.5 gigs available for user, which is really nice and really cool for plenty of apps and stuff like that. Now I'll go down here about phone. I will show you it does run 4.4.2 KitKat, and this is, like I said, this is all it's going to get. Nothing any more than this and everything. But the phone does run very well. I will go in here and clean out some of the recents. One thing I like about this phone here is the keypad. It's very big, so it's very easy to reach. Being a 4.5-inch display, you can reach it very well, and it's just, it's very easy to get a hold of. Text messaging on this phone is also really good. Let me go in here and run a quick Geekbench, and I will kind of explain a few things to you here while I run it. So let's go ahead and get this thing started. This phone, the pros of this phone is it's quick, and I grant that with 1.5 gigabytes of RAM, it really helps out playing games. With the phone snappiness, it does work very snappy, very quick. It does lag down and bog down if you really push it. Of course, like a lot of phones that are cheap, like this here does. But overall, it does work very well, and not had any really real issues with it. Um, the LTE works really good, and I gotta say, I mean, when it comes to the pros of the phone, the phone just works good. I mean, there is a few cons to the phone, and the cons is going to sound really bad since I don't have many pros about the phone to say about it, other than the fact that it works like it's supposed to. It has a good amount of RAM, a good amount of internal storage, even though it only has 8 gigs. You have like 5.5 gigs available to user. Plus, you're able to add an SD card slot, an SD card for expandable storage. But some of the negatives with this phone here, I would say, would be the call quality. With a Smart Sonic receiver, it's not the greatest in the world. It sounds kind of hollow, kind of tiny. It just don't sound the greatest in the world. But if you have pretty sensitive hearing, you shouldn't have any problem. If you're a little more hard of hearing, you may have a little bit of issue with this phone. It's kind of got a high pitched sound to it. Sometimes a little crackly. It don't sound the greatest. But overall, call quality is a 5 out of 10. It's good for some, it's bad for others. One of the worst things with this phone here is the camera. Picture quality in the rear is halfway decent. Takes some pretty good photos if you're very good and still with it. Front camera is not that great. Video camera on this thing, stay away. It's no count. Voice is out of sync. It'll only work in one setting only, and it's very poor, as I made in a video in my channel a little ways back about the camera quality on the icon. So as you see here, single cores 339, multi-cores 1121, a little on the low side, but I have seen this phone outperform phones like like other phones that I have used with sort of similar you know whatever I'm trying to say. What I'm trying to say. This phone does put out very good, and it's quick, responsive. Everything works well. So really, that's all I really want to say about the phone. Is basically the battery life is decent. I did take a few screenshots, and I will go ahead and show you to them right quick like. So just give me a second. So as you see here, with 10% battery life, I got 1 day, 2 hours, and 10 minutes, 45 seconds. Of course, that was 1 day and 2 hours on self standby. Screen on time was 4 hours and 1 minute. And this was another time that I did another battery test where I used it more heavily. I was at 1% battery life, had 15 hours on the battery. I had 15 hours on the battery and only 3 hours and 13 minutes of screen on time. So, and I was using it pretty hard, pretty heavy. But a 2000 milliamp hour battery, you can go on eBay and buy them for like $6 a piece if you want a spare battery, or carry a power bank. Don't have any issues. So, you know, I would say this phone gets all pros. The only cons it does get is call quality is a little subpar. Camera is takes pictures well. Everything else is shoddy. It's no count. It's pretty much useless. It needs a camera fix, which they never did release nothing for that, unfortunately. So that's kind of a bummer. Um, and there's one more thing. Of course, the waterproof and the mil spec is really nice if you're working outside or want to just dunk it in the water or whatever. But yeah, so that's just my thoughts of the Kyocera Hydro Icon. I would definitely recommend this phone. It's been out for a while, has kind of a smaller screen, but it works very well. And maybe I got a good one. I've heard a lot of negative about it, a lot of bad about it, but to me, it's a great phone, very underrated. And I would definitely pick one up for yourself. That's just my personal opinion. So I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. This was informative in any way. Give me that thumbs up. I'd really appreciate it. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the comment section below, and I'll get back with you as soon as possible. If you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please do so by hitting that subscribe button down below for future content. I'd really appreciate it. Y'all have a good one. Stay tuned for the next video.